Good morning, good morning, everybody, and well done for being here today. I know it is school holidays, which makes it even more chaotic. And Luke, who is our guest today, he is also on holiday. So I just so appreciate everyone taking the time out to learn and be together and learn together. So thank you very much. If you haven't noticed yet, Luke Carter is our expert again today, which I'm sure many of you will be very excited about. Luke has been on a couple of times, and I just feel like I was actually just recording something for Instagram as well. I feel like he's just this guru from everything from storytelling and marketing. Last time he spoke to us about automations. And when I announced that we were going to be doing sales, Luke reached out to me and he's like, hey, I know about sales as well. And I was like, yay! We love hearing from Luke. And Luke, I love the way that you talk and that you teach, and you're always just so generous with your information. So really, really excited to have you on here today. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And yeah, pleasure as always. And no, I'm excited for today. I think it's a really important topic. And I think, for all of you in the space of business, it's like, it really is the most important skill, at the end of the day. So, and I think the thing with sales is there's so much information out there, and I mean the majority of information out there in my personal experience is not conducive to selling in a way that feels really authentic. And I think you can go down, I think I remember I did a very expensive course before, and it gave me this huge long script of all of the things that I need to say, all of the objections that I need to handle for people. And I remember trying those processes out, and yes, to some degree it works, but I also had an incredible amount of very, very awkward conversations where the person on the other end of the call was cringing in their seat, I was cringing in my seat. It just didn't feel good. All right. And the process that I'm going to take you guys through today is something that's been incredibly transformative for me, for my business, and it's actually made me enjoy sales. All right. I actually really enjoy the opportunity to speak to someone, to get to know them, to understand what's going on in their minds, and see if I'm well positioned to actually, help them. So, the process that I'm going to give you today is, I like to look at this as a technology. Okay. It's a technology that you are going to, it's very important you go out and practice it, but I'm introducing you to a new technology today, which is, something that you can use in literally every aspect of your life. And, I'll show you guys a little bit of, what's involved. Like a big part of it was like, you can technically use this, these techniques with anyone in life. Okay. Not just business, and not just sales. And so, you might want to practice some of these on your husbands as well, and just see how that goes. Because the thing with sales, all right, is we are selling every single day, whether we like it or not. Okay. Every conversation we have with our husbands or partners or children is a huge one. You're actually selling them on an idea to go do something, or to not to do this, or to do that. So what I'm basically just trying to highlight here is that the skill of sales is actually a skill of persuasion. Okay. So it's not like a skill of, I've got to try and, say the right script or say the right words in the right time. It's actually, you need to learn how to persuade people. And the way that we persuade people are through, a series of techniques that I'm going to give you. But, so let's dive in anyway. So I'll share my screen.
Awesome. Luke, can I quickly just say something before you start? And it's about what you're saying.
Sure.
I think, sorry, just to like position this chat. I think that sales is such an important conversation to have now. And what I've seen, and I was actually, I've deleted Instagram for the holidays, but I go on my laptop at the end of every night just to kind of have a look, and I scroll through everyone's things. And as a collective, ladies, I want to say before Luke starts, I'm just so impressed with where we were 6 months ago. I mean, I remember when Luke came on and spoke to us about branding and messaging. And I think so many of us from that stage of like being very awkward about even posting on social media. Now, so many of you, the content as like a collective boss mom group, I am really, really impressed. Nicole, I was having a look at yours. Like lately, your stuff is amazing. Lene, Lorette, you've always been really great at putting yourself out there. But I just want to say, I think so many of us are putting ourselves out there way more. Our messaging is so good. Yeah, so just a very, very well done on all of that. And then I'm really excited for this conversation with Luke to kind of turn that storytelling part of it, and see how we sell and how we actually make money. I don't know if everyone's making money from those from this very productive stuff, but yeah, really excited. So Luke, thank you. I'm going to put my mic off, and really, really excited for this conversation.
All right, thank you. Let's rock and roll. So, guys, this, like I said, this technology, this process that I'm going to be taking you through, I personally have used it for high ticket sales. Okay. Now, high ticket sales is really when you're selling anything over $2,000, okay, USD. All right. And so that's kind of like the benchmark of what we call high ticket. But at the same time, this technology, the skill is, will allow you to sell absolutely anything. Okay. So whether it's low ticket, whether it's in the copy that you write in your emails, your websites, etc., the process of this is the same. And the more calls and the more conversations you have with people, and the more that you can practice the stuff that I'm going to give you, the faster you're going to develop the skill. Okay. And so that's very, very important to understand. But should you commit to this path, you will be on your journey to turning yearly income into monthly income. Okay. So where, some people, might make 40K, per year, that could be a monthly reality for you as well. Okay. But the skill of communication, persuasion, and listening is very, very difficult to pinpoint and understand when you don't actually have them. Okay. And so I'm saying that to you because the first time I actually learned this sales process, it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around it because I didn't actually have the experience of like what it feels like to actually effectively communicate or persuade. Now, I'm not saying you guys, I'm sure you're all fantastic communicators. So in which case you'll be starting ahead of where I started. But what I'm basically saying is, you don't necessarily know how it feels until one day the stuff just clicks and you can see it and you can feel it and you're like, holy crap, I've got a superpower. Okay. Because that's essentially, what it is. And the feeling will literally be a sense of, oh, wow, I can see this, I can feel how this is going to change my life. And so that's exactly what happened to me. And that's what's going to happen for you should you commit to this process and actually take action in practicing what I'm going to give you. Now, one of the ultimate things that you guys could do, okay, and this is just an idea, is when you are at your next meetup or your event or something like this, is actually role playing this process out with each other, because it is all about the practice and the repetition of the skill that is actually going to make this worthwhile for you. Okay, because again, the other way of doing it and the way I did it was practicing this on sales calls with people. And initially I was very, very bad at it. Okay. So, but again, that's the process of learning any new skill, right? You've just got to go through the part of things that suck a little bit, but again, taking the pressure out of it and actually doing it in a role-playing situation with, the awesome community you guys have will be a really good idea. So the process is really around developing high conversion, high close skills for high ticket sales. Okay, so it will give you a considerable advantage in the process of generating money-making opportunities. And so it always starts with understanding that in any conversation you have, basically two main jobs. Okay, and those jobs are, okay, the skill of active listening. And the second job is the skill of knowing what to listen for. Okay. Those are the only two jobs you have whenever you get onto a sales call with someone. All right. So, what I used to do when I got on sales calls was like, okay, I really hope this person is going to sign up with me. I really hope I'm going to get the sale. In fact, I flip and need the sale. Okay. And when I went in with that energy, those people could feel it. They could absolutely feel that I was desperate for the sale. I actually was just thinking about the next thing I was going to say. And I was actually, I had a script next to the Zoom call, and I would just be reading off the script. Okay. So think about how less of a genuine experience that is. Okay. And so if you can actually just take the script and throw it into the bin and focus on these two priorities on every given sales call, every conversation, your effectiveness as a salesperson is going to increase tenfold. Okay. Because one sad reality of today's age is that most people are actually not used to having a conversation with someone where someone is actually active listening for you. Okay. People are not used to that. So imagine getting on a call with someone and someone actually genuinely caring what you have to say and actually showing them that you're listening to them. Okay. It's a completely different shift in energy and how people will actually relate to you. Okay. So the skill of active listening is incredibly important. Do you know what active listening entails? You guys can just drop in a thumbs up or a no, and I can give you a little bit of a little bit of a thing for it. If no, that's fine. Okay, cool. So active listening. Let me see if I have it on this side. No. Okay. Active listening. Well, have you ever felt that feeling of like being on a call with someone and when they're speaking, you're kind of just thinking about the next thing you're going to be saying. Okay, so that's like the absolute opposite of active listening. Okay, so one thing that you can start practicing whenever anyone is talking to you, you're really focused and present on what they are saying. And when they stop talking, you basically repeat back parts of what they just said to you back to them. Okay. So for example, if someone said to me, hey, Luke, today I was really struggling with, a little bit of fear, self-doubt, and imposter syndrome, and it's really just got me down in the dumps. When that person finished speaking, I would actually, because I'm taking notes during the conversation, I would say imposter syndrome, fear, doubt, self-doubt. And I would say, okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is you're feeling a sense of fear. You're feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're feeling a bit down in the dumps. Is that right? Okay, so I'm repeating back to that person what they just said to me. And that is the process of active listening. And so you can all actually go out and do this to your partners today. Next time they speak to you, this afternoon, might be at dinner, it might be around the thing. Just practice repeating back what they said to them. It might not be super formulaic, but just practice it and just see what happens to the conversation. Okay, you will find that the person typically is like, what the hell? This is different. They're not just like interjecting with but. They're actually, repeating back to, back what they just said to me. So they're showing me that they're listening. Okay, so is that okay, guys? Yeah, so Yanni, listen, reflect, question, correct. Okay. Yes, and writing notes is incredibly important, okay? Because again, when you're writing notes on these calls, people are like, oh, they're actually taking some notes. So very important to have your notepad out. Now, the second thing and the second skill, once you are doing active listening, the second skill is to actually know what to listen for. Okay, and that's what I'm going to give you today. I'm going to give you the actual pinpoint things that you need to be listening for and making sure you're writing those down, because that is going to be the leverage we use later on in the conversation when we pitch our products. Okay, so whenever you're communicating to persuade, you're selling, whether you're selling an idea, a product, or a solution, or simply getting someone to trust you, you're selling them on something. And in order to get someone to fully accept what you're selling, you need leverage. Okay. And again, this process is all about understanding how to get leverage through actually listening to someone and asking the right questions at the right time to get someone to actually uncover what some of these things are so you can use them as leverage. Now, a really important thing that a mentor once told me, was like, Luke, do you understand that all of the dollars that you desire are actually all around you right now? Like, your job is not to create money. Your job is literally to convince other people to give it to you in exchange for your value. Okay, because there are millions and millions of rands and dollars all around you right now. But the more effective you are at persuasion and communication, the easier it is for people to actually pay you that money for the value you have to offer. Now, one of the things, and again, this is a really interesting book that you might want to read, but it's all about social engineering. Okay, so there are people out there that use similar techniques to actually persuade people to give them their money in exchange for nothing. Okay, this is where con artists, scam artists, people who do phishing emails, etc., they use these social engineering techniques for bad, basically. Okay, now what we need to understand is that these techniques are actually being used by people all the time, and we want to actually understand these techniques, number one, so we can protect ourselves against them, but number two, so we can actually use them in the benefit of other people. Sorry guys, 1 second. Okay, I'll move out. Can I jump in there? Sorry guys, 1 second. I'm just in a co-working space. 2 secs. Okay. All right. So, our job then is to use these same skills to get people to give you their money in exchange for the value you have to offer. Okay. And so that's what we're going to be going through, is really the thinking and the reasoning of how this is done. And so one thing I just want to sort of highlight here, and this is going to make sense just in a few slides, is that in people's brains, what's basically happening is, a really intricate set of neurons and communication that is basically called action potentials. And these are always either excitatory or inhibitory. Okay. And so excitatory currents in the brain are those that prompt one neuron to share information with the next through an action potential. Inhibitory currents reduce the possibility that that transfer will actually take place. Okay, and so we all possess the ability to trigger these inhibitory states and excitatory states in ourselves and others. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, okay, the reason I'm telling you this is very, very important. You, as someone who is in persuasion or someone who is in sales, needs to understand whether the person on the other end of the call or the conversation or the Zoom is in an excitatory state or in a inhibitory state. Okay, because when you are in a inhibitory state, you cannot see what the future might look like. You cannot see future possibilities because this is happening. All right, so good luck trying to sell someone on something that's going to change their life if they cannot actually see what that might look like because they're stuck in an inhibitory state. All right, and so in an inhibitory state just basically means a stressed state. It means they're feeling a little bit crap, they're down in the dumps, and that's actually how most people get to most sales calls, okay, especially if you're in the business of consulting and coaching. And so one of the really damaging things about traditional sales is that traditional sales teaches you to press pain points. Okay, how many times have you heard you got to press the pain points, you got to drive the pain points in, and you got to make them really feel the pain of their situation? Okay, the problem of doing that is you basically just dig people into a deeper inhibitory state where they actually can't make a positive choice in their life. All right. Whereas if someone was in an excitatory state, that is where they can actually see what the future might look like. Okay. And so, like I said, we all have the ability to trigger these states within ourselves and within others. Now, again, I'm going to use our partners again as a big sort of thing with this, because how many times have your partners spoken to you and you can tell that they're in a bloody inhibitory state? Okay, and the worst thing to try and do in that state is try and convince them and shout at them and say, hey, do this, do that, because it's just going to make them feel more crap. All right, and it's the same thing with our sales processes. Okay, so excitatory states are mental conditions in which an individual's behavior and expression are open and essentially unrestricted. Okay. So you can tell if someone's in an excitatory state with you because they're open, they're bubbly, they're sharing, they're talking, and you can actually just observe it in their body language. All right. Whereas if someone's in an inhibitory state, these are mental states in which a person's thoughts, actions, and behaviors are restricted or suppressed. Okay. And so you need to basically be able to tell when someone gets on a call with you, are they in an excitatory state or are they in an inhibitory state? All right. I do this with my clients, for example, as well. Okay. It's not even just for a sales call. If a client gets on a call with me and I can tell that he's in a inhibitory state, it is my job to get them out of that state and into an excitatory state as quickly as possible. Okay. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in a second. But one first thing I just want to say to you is that, this whole idea of being a sales closer, in my opinion, is BS. Okay. I'm not trying to convince anyone to become my client on a sales call. All right. And most convincing sales or influencing or other persuasive attempts fail because the convincer unwittingly triggers inhibitory states within the person they are trying to persuade. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. I went down someone's sales funnel the other day. I bought a low ticket product. I booked in a sales call with them. And on the sales call, this guy was obviously a very good marketer. But when it got to the sale, I said, look, dude, like this offer is not for me. He was selling about a $10,000 product. And he immediately started, when I said no initially, immediately started to try and convince me. Okay, so he went into this convincing thing. And then in my brain, I'm just observing what's happening. I'm trying to come up with all of these excuses. It's the money, it's the time, it's this. And I could just slowly feel inside my body that I was going deeper and deeper into an inhibitory state. All right, so the traditional sales method, which is, you've got to go through this script to try and close someone. What you're actually doing, if you're trying to convince someone to become a sale, you're pushing them further and further and further into an inhibitory state, which is going to just lock them out of actually buying from you. And if they end up doing it through pressure, it's going to be something they regret. They're going to get buyer's remorse, and they're probably going to ask for a refund. Okay, so convincing in sales, you can actually just take that pressure off yourself and actually just not have to do it. Because if you go through the process I'm going to give you in a few slides time, if you do that correctly, people will not be giving you objections. Okay. So, and again, this is kind of, the same for our partners. It's for children or prospects. Okay. The worst thing that you can do is trigger inhibitory states. Yet we do it all the time, especially in the sales process. Okay, so high conversion, high close, high ticket sales are dependent on your ability to move prospects out of inhibitory states into excitatory states, because motivation sparks from excitement, not from inhibition. Okay, by shifting people from pain and drama-filled negative states into positive states, you open them up to possibility thinking and being excited about opportunities. Okay. If you are about to spend $2,000 on a product or a service, you better be sure that I'm going to want to be excited about actually buying that, as opposed to be, in a state of fear, anxiety, and stress. All right. This is why this is a level up when you're selling higher ticket services or high ticket products, because you want people at that level to just be very excited about working with you. Okay, it's a completely different shift. And so this shift basically moves their outlook into the future to enhance performance and new potentials instead of closure when stress, pain, and drama are present. Okay, so you'll leverage your authority more effectively and get less objections, because objections come from inhibitory states and rarely from excitatory states. And when you like something, you're interested in it. You read about it, you pursue it, you learn it, you want more of it. It's the same with your prospects. Okay, think about, anytime you do a new course and you're buzzing for it, you're excited, you get into it and you get the transformation. And so a huge mindset shift that I want you guys to basically go into this with is that your solution and what you're offering is the prize. Okay. You have a version of what what your prospects want. You know, one of the biggest problems I see a lot of my clients go into is like, Luke, you know, should I follow up with this person? Should I try and get this person onto another call? Oh, I screwed that sales call up. It's like, no, if you go through this process correctly and you see yourself as the prize, people will search you out. Okay. And if they don't, then they are not your right customer. All right. And so it's a shift in mindset from one of scarcity to abundance. Okay, to truly believe that you are the prize and what you have has intrinsic value. Right. And so when you start wanting what they have, aka the sale, the money, you are then focused on external convincing. You know, like I said, when I first went through this whole sales process, I would just be really wishing and hoping that the person would sign up for me. And, you know, to some degree, I actually needed the money at the time. All right. So you can think how difficult it was. I was like on a sales call, I really needed the flipping sale. So you can immediately see how I flipped into this kind of desperation energy that people can, you know, feel through the call. So you move into that external convincing realm as opposed to seeing the value that I have and the service that I have as the ultimate prize that someone would want. Okay. And so when you go into that external convincing, they cannot see your opportunity anymore because you've triggered an inhibitory state. So you've basically put the blinders on for them. Okay. And so one thing that I do, if I can see that someone's objecting, either I go back to the discovery process or I actually say, you know what, let's actually, you know, let's organize a call, you know, for a few days time. All right. So you actually take the pressure off trying to close them on one call and just move it over and just delay it a little bit, because that it gives you the time to actually reset your energy and go back through the discovery process. All right. So if a person says, I'm tired of working and getting nowhere, I'm fed up with being stuck with my job. So imagine this person got on a call with you and basically started with all of this drama. I'm tired of this. I'm sick of this. I'm fed up with this. They're basically expressing an inhibitory state, okay, which restricts their thinking, their behaviors, and their abilities to see solutions or opportunities you might present them with. So if someone starts a call by saying, hey, I'm really sick and tired of this. My brand is terrible. I can't get any likes on social media. I'm not making any sales. In my brain, I'm listening. So remember, that's the second skill. It's knowing what to listen for. And the first thing that you're listening for is, are they in inhibitory or excitatory? So my brain is triggered. Okay, they're stuck with their job. They're da-da-da-da-da. I'm writing that down. I'm doing active listening. And then I'm going to try and flip them into an excitatory state. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So when a person is deeply involved in what they want to experience, there is little resistance to moving forward on what they want. It's an excitatory state where all sort of limiting conditions melt away. So in an excitatory state, prospects, people, partners are more able to focus on opportunities and solutions that benefit them. So when you move a person into their dream state, they start experiencing what they want. And the important word to note here is dream state, which I'll explain shortly. But for high conversion, high close sales, your job is to connect your product or your service or whatever it is you're selling to your prospect's ultimate dream state. Okay. And one thing I'll just say about this real quick. Okay. And in fact, I'll do it in the next section, but I just wanted to do a quick sense check, guys. Does inhibitory and excitatory states make sense to you so far? If you have any questions, this would probably be a good time to ask them, because we're going to go into the actual questioning process now. Just going to close this door. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. All right, guys, let's press on then. Let's crack on. All right. So we've spoken about inhibitory and excitatory states. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get into how to actually flip them out of inhibitory to excitatory. And then we're going to go into how to uncover their dream state, which again is the highest point of leverage that you can have. So for high ticket, high conversion sales, pain is the lowest form of influence and leverage you have. And the dream state is the highest form of leverage you have over someone. Okay, so this strategy is based on 2 skills and 3 questions. And these 2 skills and 3 questions, I want you to write down and stick up next to your computer or wherever you're doing sales. So the first skill, like we said earlier, is active listening. Okay, so this involves a conscious effort to understand the complete message being communicated by the other person. And the second skill is what to listen for. Okay, so this involves paying close attention to the speaker and trying to understand both the content and the level on their internal map their words are coming from. So on anyone's internal map, there are always 8 levels to listen for, and I'm going to give those to you at the end. But the questions, the 3 questions I want you guys to consider and to print out and to write down are, number 1, what made you to decide to book an appointment or to have a call with me today? Okay. So how many, I'll speak from experience here, but a lot of sales processes tell you that you need to start the call by building rapport with someone. Okay. They say, hey, you got to do a bit of small talk. You got to ask about their family. How are their kids? How's the husband? Where are you? Okay, but you have to cut rapport, like that small talk chit chat, like out of this process entirely. Okay, throw it in the bin. The first thing that you do on any call, and this is the way that you start it, is basically what made you decide to book in the call with me today. Okay, the reason that we do that, and I initially thought this was weird because I was like, oh my gosh, you have to build rapport with someone. But my mentor basically taught me this, and he said, this sets the frame for the conversation and immediately gets someone to actually uncover and tell you exactly what their intention is. All right. So, the answer to this question is also going to give you clues as to whether they are inhibitory or excitatory. Because if you ask this question to someone and they say, hey, I'm feeling really down in the dumps right now, boom, bingo, she's in an inhibitory state. Okay, so you've already found out the first clue. The second question is, all right, so based on everything you said right now, that you're trying to achieve and you're trying to do, what's important to you about that? Okay, so if someone answer that first question by saying, hey, Luke, I got into the call because, I'm really struggling with my personal brand, blah, 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 blah. I would go through the process of active listening, and then I would ask them the question, okay, so tell me what's important to you about actually building a personal brand. Okay. Whatever comes from this next question is something I'm going to write down. Now we're going to go into a little bit more depth in this in a sec, but the third question is ultimately, what would that and that do for you? So if they answered the question to personal brand, they would typically say something on a level slightly more deep. So on the surface, it might be like they want to build a personal brand, but what's important to you about a personal brand? Well, I really want to start making more money. Okay, I really want to quit my 9 to 5. So then I would take that clue and I would say, all right, well, ultimately, what would quitting your 9 to 5 and actually making more money do for you? And then I'm going to dig another layer deeper and find out what's really going on. Okay. And so the answer to the third question is actually coming from their dream state. Okay. And remember, we said earlier that the highest point of leverage you can have is their dream state. So the third answer to the third question, what would having more money and leaving your 9 to 5 do for you? They might say something like, well, I would have financial freedom, or, well, I would become geographically free, or I would make my family really proud of me. Okay. And so I'm writing those down and I'm highlighting it because I'm like, bingo, that's the dream state that this person actually wants to achieve. Okay. So, Christy, do you have a question there?
I do have a question, Luke. So I'm just wondering, like, particularly with your work actually with anyone, now that I think about it, does this conversation happen before or after people know about your services and your, like, particularly I'm thinking pricing and things like that? Because I think when I get on a call very often, so I'm at the stage where we're selling marketing, and particularly now I'm going for much bigger brands. So the the numbers are much bigger than what I've dealt with. And I'm always worried that we kind of go through this process of talking on a meeting before I've really told them the price. So I'm wondering, like, do you first, I don't know what the word is, I want to say eliminate, but it's not eliminate. It's like, do you funnel them before or after these conversations?
Yeah. Are you, just let me ask you a quick question first.
Yeah.
Are you, do you, is your sort of desire to tell them the price sooner come because you don't want to waste like ages going through a conversation and then at the end they're like, oh, that's way too much, way too expensive?
Exactly, because I get a lot of interest now in promoting on our communities. Um, and obviously I don't want to dilute the communities by letting everybody promote. So our prices are a bit higher, but only bigger businesses are able to kind of pay for that or have budgeted for that, where a lot of people show interest. So I kind of want to, yeah. So instead of wasting everybody's time in the process, that I'm just like not willing to anymore let businesses promote for a tiny amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways I can answer this, but I think the way that I will do it is that if you become really skilled at what I'm giving you now, okay, if you become really skilled at it, price does not become a factor for people anymore. Okay.
Okay. I can't
And
wait for that.
if you do this correctly, people will say, here's my money, please take it.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
Now I know that might sound crazy, but it is literally just a level of skill. Okay,
Mm,
because one of the most common objections that we typically get on sales, you know, for if you're not using a process like this, is that it's too expensive.
mm,
And one of the most common reasons people say something is too expensive is because either they are in a inhibitory state
mm,
or they can't see what you're offering as an actual solution to their ultimate dream state. Because what most people are doing is selling to the surface level. You're selling to,
mm,
okay, I'm going to help you build a personal brand. But as we said here, the reason we ask these questions in order is because I'm actually understanding the real reason they want to build a personal brand is because they want to be financially free. They want to have
mm,
geographical freedom. All right. So you have to go through this first before you offer them your product. Because if you offer them the
okay.
product first, you're not connecting your product to their dream state and you're not
Yeah.
actually getting them to express it and say it out loud.
Okay, so that I get that. But so let's use you as an example with that guy that you went through his sale process. Did you not then at the end when he was like, okay, it's $10,000, were you not at that point like, oh, well, why'd you waste my time? Like, I'm not going to pay $10,000 for that.
Yes, but because yes, I was like, bro,
Okay.
like this is bullshit. Like, but
Yeah.
because his sales process was terrible and he was just trying to externally convince me, and I didn't
Okay.
necessarily see it as, you know, look, I'm not, this isn't 100% waterproof. Okay, by the way. So it's not like every time works. There are going to be times
Mm,
where it is just not the right time for someone. Okay.
of course. Yeah.
And in which case, if it is not the right time for someone, then I'm either like, okay, cool. Like I've gotten practice of doing this process
Mm,
real time. So I'm developing my skill. And number two, I want to leave that person with a really good feeling. If I genuinely have gone through this person, they're like, look, I really can't flip and afford it. Then okay, no stress. You know, here's
mm,
something for free. Here's my lead magnet. Stay in my system. Be nurtured over time until the time
okay.
does become right. But that being said, all right, oftentimes the objection of it is too expensive really does mean that they actually don't see your solution as valuable enough. So
Yeah.
what we're doing here is we're building up a huge amount of perceived value in what you're offering, because when we get to the transition, when we actually talk about your service and your offer, they already just are like, flip, this person has gotten into my head, this person understands me,
Mm,
this person is offering me exactly what I want, and I've not even languaged it before. Okay, so for example, I had a conversation with a woman before, and she got on the call and I went through this exact process. When I asked the third question, she started crying. Okay. And she started crying because she had never actually verbalized what her dream state was before. She always thought she just wanted a brand. She didn't know that she actually wanted that financial freedom. She might have, said it in certain ways before, but no one had actually, number one, actively listened with her or made her feel heard and seen. But no one got to this point, because the powerful thing about these questions is that you're actually getting someone to open up and speak about themselves. And it feels really good to speak about yourself to someone, especially if someone's listening to you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm going to mute myself again, but that answers it so well, and that makes me really excited, actually. So thank you. And I think, yeah, like you said, there's no real lose situation in that, because either they buy your product, hopefully, and money isn't the object. Or if it is and they really can't afford it, like you said, I really like the idea of actually then they're still in your system. You still get to nurture that relationship, and they're still valued that time, rather than seeing it. Because I do, like, my mindset is like, oh, I don't want to waste somebody's time, you know? But if I switch that to, like, I'm still adding value, and then I'm
Correct.
still putting them in that dream state, even if they can't afford it, they can keep following my journey. So thank you. I'm going to mute my mic
Correct.
and let you continue.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Luke.
Absolutely. Okay. So question one. All right. What made you decide to book an appointment today and have a call? All right. So the first goal, once you ask this question, is to listen to the inhibitory bias. Okay. You never want to let your prospect go into pain, because it sets the inhibitory bias for the call. So the reason we ask this question first is because it allows us to understand that, but then it also gives us the opportunity to flip them into excitatory. And so when I hear that someone is going into an inhibitory pattern, okay, and I can tell that they're all stressed and they're going through this thing, I positively interrupt them. And the key here is speed, okay, because we quickly get them out of the negative and flip them into the positive. And the quicker you can frame them into excitatory, the better. All right. So one of the worst things I used to do is, if someone was like complaining about their problems, I would go in and I would add to the drama. Yes, you're so right. That sucks. These people are so against and blah, blah, blah. And I would just add to the drama. Okay. You don't want to add to the drama. You want to positively interrupt them, then flip them. And the way that we flip them is say, okay, so, what you're actually saying to me is you want to do something where you feel like you're moving in the right direction that you want to go, right? Okay. And what I'm basically saying here is it's easy to know what a person wants by developing the ability to hear what the person doesn't want. So when someone starts talking to you about their inhibitory state, so you say, okay, all right, you're telling me that you're really struggling to make sales online. So what you're really trying to say to me is that you would like to make more sales and start to experience more traction online. Is that correct? So I've taken everything they've said, and I've completely flipped it into the opposite of what those negative things are. And I said, is that actually what you want? So you're telling me you don't want these things. Would you rather have these things, which are all in a positive light? That immediately pattern interrupts the brain and gets them to think onto something positive. Okay. So for example, if someone says, hey, I'm struggling with cash flow this month, and it's really getting me down in the dumps. Okay. So what you're telling me is you're really struggling with cash flow this month. So I'm repeating back to them what they just said. But is what you're really trying to say to me is that this is what you want. You really want to experience more cash. You want to experience the certainty of having recurring income. Is that correct? So we make them feel heard and we flip them into the positive. Okay. And that's one way we can start to get them to let go of their negative frame. So you basically find the opposite of the pain they want to go into and dig deeply into that, the opposite. So what you really want is XXX. Is that correct? Okay. So again, it's kind of a bit counterintuitive to traditional sales, but that's a good thing. Now, once we've gone through that, guys, and you're writing stuff down on your notepad, okay, we're then going to go into question two. What's important to you about that? Okay, so the answers to this question. So remember, the second skill is knowing what to listen for. Whatever they answer after you ask this is basically pointing to what their values are. Okay, so your prospect must tell you their values first. So once we've uncovered, we've flipped them into positive. We know why they're on the call. So tell me, what's important to you about actually doing that, building a brand? So I'm building a brand because I want to have more money. I want to have more security. Those words are their values. So you've got to write them down. Okay. And so again, you go through the process. Okay, so that makes perfect sense. You know, you're telling me that you want to have more security, et cetera, et cetera. So tell me, ultimately, what would having more security and what would having more money actually do for you? And so the answers to this question then point directly to their dream state. And that's the bingo card. That's really the main thing you're listening for. Okay. And so this basically gives you the most leverage in any sales or persuasive process. It's the most important perceptual point of entry into their model of the world. Okay. You need to understand that every single human being on planet Earth has a different model of the world, a way of seeing the world. And these questions give you an insight into the person's mind. And that's why I honestly encourage you guys to take this into your daily life and start asking these questions to people you see around in conversations. See if you can word them in your own language and see if you don't have to go. This is not a script that you have to follow step by step. The conversation might take a natural turn where you go through the conversation, but as long as you know you're always bringing it back to these three questions because you're trying to take the stepping stones to get to the dream state. All right. So is that okay so far, guys? Because I'm conscious the other slides I've got right now are actually a little bit technical. And I'm not sure whether we should do that or we should just open up to Q&A, Christy. But I think what I've given you so far is actually the base of this process. But I just wanted to see if anyone has any questions. And then if there's no questions or if we have time at the end, I can go through the rest. But I think it would probably be a good time to open up to questions now.
Perfect.
Hi, Luke.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry. I have a quick question. It should be relatively short. But so like the first question you ask is sort of like, what made you decide to book the call today? Which is very much in the scenario that it's like an inbound lead. So
Yeah.
what if you've done outbound outreach and somebody said, okay, yeah, sure, let's have a call. I know it's a small change, but like how you change the language so that it seems like,
Yes.
because for me, that sort of feels like I've approached you. So now why am I asking you why you've come here when I've actually asked you to come here? So yeah, how would you deal with that?
It's a great question because I struggle with that a little bit too, but you're basically languaging it the same in a slightly different way. You're basically saying what made you or what about what I sent you or said to you got you interested in accepting this call.
Okay. Yeah. I
it's
figured
like,
it would be probably mainly just a
yeah.
languagey thing.
Yeah, because
Okay.
there had to
And
be a
then
reason that the person accepted the call in the first
agreed.
place. So it's like, what motivated
Yeah.
you to actually accept this call from a random person? Like,
Yeah.
there has to be a reason.
Yeah.
And I think, Robin, I know that you work with businesses as well. And I think
Yeah.
most business owners are incredibly busy and their time is incredibly valuable. So the fact that they are willing to give up their time to speak to you, that's kind of the question at hand, I would say.
Yeah.
Like they're still making that trade-off,
Yeah, definitely. And then I think it's also, and I mean, all of this is like how you're playing it out in your own head. So like I often feel when I've approached somebody, they're almost like doing me a favor. So it's like, again, like coming out of that mindset of like, this isn't just a transactional favor thing. It can actually be beneficial for both parties. And we're actually here to try and see if like values align as opposed to like, again, I'm not just selling to you. I'm having a conversation and trying to understand you.
Yes, fantastic, Robin. That's spot on. And I think, one mindset shift which has helped me, it's like before a call, like it's just detaching any expectations of the outcome. So like completely detaching from what is going to happen on this call and almost putting my doctor's hat on that I'm going to go into this call to try and see through my questioning whether I'm actually suited to help this person or not. All right. And where the integrity piece comes into play is like, if I don't think I'm qualified to help this person, or if I don't genuinely think this person's a good fit for me and we're not going to get a good result together, I'm actually going to end the call as quickly as I can.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if I get a sense that this is not the right person or the match, I will actually politely just say, hey, look, I appreciate you jumping the call, but to respect both of our times right now, I think let's just end it there. Okay.
Yeah.
Because then you're just actually wasting anyone's time, but you're also doing them a good deed. And one thing that I've done before is, if I don't think I'm the right person for that person to help them, I'll say, you know what, I'm not the right person for this job, but I do have a friend who knows how to do this. Let me put you in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, that is such a cool thing, because that person's always going to remember you as someone who just helped them out. You just put them in touch with the right person. The person you refer them to as well is going to appreciate you. And you're actually just turning every sales call into some form of opportunity, even if it doesn't result into monetary value. But I think what you were saying is spot on. It's like seeing yourself as a doctor, and you're actually trying to diagnose the problem and see if you have the solution.
Yeah, that's a really, really good frame. Thank you.
I love it. Does anybody else have any questions? I can't actually see everyone's block, so you're just going to have to start talking if you do have a question. No? No questions? Okay, Luke, well, I think that you're right. I think let's leave it there. These are amazing, amazing questions. And I'm sure I'm going to... Oh, Nicole, I see that you've said something. Oh, no question. I'm sure I'm going to convince you to try and come on again, because I feel like every time you come on, all of us just like learn and just move leaps ahead with trying to practice this. So at our next meetup, which is next Friday, ladies, we can try and practice some of these questions. And I think, yeah, Luke, like you said, have it more organic and be able to have it like roll off our tongue.
Yes.
A bit of drama class, ladies.
Yes. And just one thing I'll say. So like there's all of this part included, but I just wanted to say that the outcome that we're really trying to get here is for someone to go, wow, this person really understands me. Okay. So that's why the questions are designed the way they are. And your job, remember, is the skill of active listening and knowing what to listen for, so that you give the person this amazing feeling, which is really a gift. Okay. For someone to go, wow, this person really understands me. Okay. That equals trust and authority. And really what that's going to do is give the person a moment of transformative change where everything clicks into place, old limitations fall away, and new potentials start to emerge. So, this presentation is part one of actually 7 presentations. All right. Now, again, there's a lot to this technology, but I'm always happy to do more. So just if you have a desire for it, just ask Christy, and we'll organize it. But yeah, cheers for having me, and check out my Instagram if you guys want to follow for more information.
Luke, can you pop your Instagram into the
Sure.
comments, just so that everyone has a quick link? And then, yeah, just thank you so much. Also, guys, I know I mention it every single time and I post about it in the WhatsApp groups, but Luke has like an incredible YouTube channel as well. Luke, I don't know how you make money outside of that, because so much information and value. I mean, I know within our leaders group, Noemi, I don't know if Noemi's on this call, but she has spent many hours listening to your stuff as well. So yeah, just thank you again for all the value that you've added. I know you've changed many of our businesses just by being on here and chatting to us and helping us in just such practical ways and things that I think a lot of us haven't heard before. Because even with this, I kind of expected you to come on and say the same thing that we are listening to on YouTube, but you always have a very unique approach. And something actually on that, something that I heard last week, I can't remember who it was, but I was watching a talk, and he was saying that everyone's kind of, in the social media world, we're all copying each other. So we see one person do something that works, like comment below, and then all of a sudden everybody's doing it. But our brains are wired to kind of see things that are different. So as soon as we keep seeing them, our brains just become blinded to it. And just how important it is to to change your message up. Or of course, like we want to follow trends and stuff, but if everybody's following the trend, nobody's seeing it. So I love this new approach. And I mean, this is more obviously for sales calls than social media, but I think that we could also use this on social media.
You can.
And just like how to create this dream state, which I really love. So thank you again.
If you don't mind me adding something, if that's okay, just to what you
Please.
just said. So this sales process, okay, it is designed to happen on, like you said, on a call or in person, okay. But it's like the whole question of how do you actually get that person onto the sales call, it is a whole nother conversation, which comes down to marketing. All right. And one thing that you need to understand is that dream state selling is again, it's the process of moving them from inhibitory to excitatory. But when it comes to social media, you're not necessarily speaking to the dream state on social media, because you've got to remember that people are twice as motivated to move out of pain than they are to move towards pleasure. So your job of your marketing is to communicate that you understand the problem and the pain that they are in. And the job of the sales call is to then take them out of that pain and move them to excitatory. Okay. So if any of you wants to understand more about this, type into ChatGPT or whatever and tell it to teach you about loss aversion marketing. And I'll leave it there. That's just a little bit of homework for you guys.
Luke, thank you. Sorry, and one more thing. Can you put your YouTube channel link in the comments as well?
Yes.
Thank you. And I will obviously also post that on our WhatsApp channel. But I am heading out, so I won't be able to send this link straight away to everybody. But I will do it later. Luke, thank you again. And ladies, thank you also for taking time in the holidays. I know childcare and all that isn't easy. But I really appreciate all you being here. I think it's always nice being together, and then we can like go into the world and practice these things and not feel so intimidated and shy to do it alone, because we're all doing it and we're all fumbling and failing and trying hard. So thank you everybody, and have a good rest of your holiday, and we will chat soon. Thanks, Luke. Bye guys.
Bye.